Everyone likes to believe they are hard to predict. You tell yourself you are complex, you are different, you are not easily controlled. But watch what happens when someone quietly studies you for a few days. They are not looking at your soul. They are watching your reactions. The slight smile when you hear a title, the way your shoulders drop when someone confident takes charge, the rush in your voice when tension finally breaks. These are not random. They are patterns. To a skilled manipulator, your patterns are a map. They learn where you seek safety, where you avoid shame, where you trade your boundaries just to feel calm again. After that, they do not need to force you. They just set the conditions, and you walk yourself to the outcome they wanted all along. This is not magic. It is psychology used without mercy. In this video, you are not going to hear about vague intuition or mysterious energy. You are going to see how concrete bias, habit, and fear make your next move obvious to anyone patient enough to watch. You will see how your admiration, your need to feel reasonable, your fear of standing alone, and your hate for unfinished business betray you before you speak. You think you are deciding. In reality, you are following rails you did not build. By the end, you will know how those rails are laid. More importantly, you will know how to step off them, even when every part of you wants to slide back into the comfort of being predictable. 1. The halo trap. How your admiration becomes a blindfold. The easiest people to control are not the stupid, the weak, or the uneducated. They are the impressed, the person who still believes that status means truth, that charisma means goodness, that confidence means competence. Psychologists have a name for this: the halo effect. It started with Edward Thorndike, who noticed that when soldiers rated their officers, one strong trait, such as physical appearance or leadership, infected every other rating. If the officer looked sharp, they were judged as smarter, kinder, more capable, even when there was no evidence. The brain does not like uncertainty, so it takes a shortcut. If one thing is positive, the rest probably is too. That shortcut saves time. It also creates a blindfold. Manipulators hunt for that blindfold. They are not always charming themselves. Some are boring, plain, or even unpleasant. They do not need to be the star. They just need to know who your stars are, so they test you. They drop a famous name and watch your face. They mention a job title and watch your posture. They talk about experts, executives, influencers, spiritual leaders, or so-called successful people, and look for the flicker in your eyes. Do you lean forward slightly? Does your voice get softer, more eager when you repeat the name? Do you stop questioning the logic and start defending the person? If yes, they have found your halo. From then on, they root their influence through that figure or through that style. Your body gives you away long before your words do. When someone you find impressive speaks, tiny things change. Your pupils may widen a bit. You may tilt your head, exposing your neck slightly like a sign of trust. Your tone evens out, less sharp, more accepting. You interrupt less. You nod more. You are no longer only judging the content of what is being said. You are judging the source, and then bending the content to fit that judgment. If they are high status, you assume the idea is smart. If they are attractive, you assume they are kind. If they are confident, you assume they know what they are talking about. A manipulator looks at this and learns something simple. You are more loyal to the messenger than to the truth. Robert Cialdini called it the authority principle. When you believe someone has authority, their requests feel more valid. Their demands feel more reasonable. Nurses in studies have followed dangerous instructions from doctors, not because they agreed, but because the white coat and role made resistance feel wrong. You are not much different. When someone comes with the right symbols of authority, like a title, a brand name, luxury, or proof of success, your guard drops. You are more likely to donate, buy, sign, or agree, even when a small, quiet part of you is unsure. Manipulators study which symbols flip that switch in you. Expensive watch, academic degree, spiritual language, high follower count. Once they know it, they put the costume on their ideas and walk straight past your doubt. The result is simple and dangerous. You start obeying the halo instead of your own judgment. Someone says a nonsense argument, but it comes from a person you admire, so you twist your logic to fit. A boss you respect crosses a line, but you excuse it because they are brilliant or visionary. A partner you think is special crosses your boundary, but you tell yourself they must know better, or that you are overreacting. The manipulator does not need to guess your reaction anymore. They already know that as long as the message looks like it comes from a chosen idol or a chosen image, you will let it pass. Your admiration has turned into a remote control. The way out starts with humiliation. The healthy kind. You have to admit that your brain does this, that you are not above the halo effect. Here is a simple counter move. Strip the halo. When someone with status speaks, mentally erase every sign of rank. Remove the degree, the beauty, the money, the followers, the suit. Imagine an ordinary stranger in a cheap hoodie saying the exact same words while sitting across from you on a bus. Ask yourself, would I still think this is smart, kind, or right if it came from that person? If the answer shifts, the content was never strong. It only rode in on the aura. You do not have to disrespect the person. You just stop letting your nervous system surrender to the glow around them. Practice this often. Watch an interview with a famous figure, but do not look at their face. Just listen as if they were a random caller. Read a statement by a leader without their name on it, and see how it sounds when you do not know who said it. Over time, you rewire a key reaction, instead of asking who said it. First, you train yourself to ask, does this make sense first? When you do this in real life, manipulators feel it. They notice you are not as easily impressed, and their usual tricks do not get the same response. Their map of you becomes less clear. The halo trap stops being a blindfold and turns into a signal. Every time someone leans too hard on status instead of substance, you take it as a warning. They are trying to control the lens instead of respecting your sight. 2. Anchor insertion. Controlling your baseline before you even decide. Most people think their decisions start when they speak. They think the negotiation begins when both sides sit down. The sale begins when the price is mentioned. The fight begins when the argument starts. That is already too late. By the time you open your mouth, your mind often has a silent anchor buried in it. That anchor is the first number, frame, or story that was fed to you. Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman showed this clearly. Ask people to write down the last 2 digits of their phone number, then ask them to guess the price of a product. Those with higher phone digits give higher estimates. The random number sticks. It becomes a silent reference point, even though it has nothing to do with the truth. The mind is lazy. It clings to the first thing it gets. Manipulators know this and treat the first thing as a weapon. They do not care if their first offer is unrealistic or outrageous. In fact, sometimes the more extreme it is, the better. They just want it inside your head. Say they want you to pay a certain price. They start with a much higher one. You react, you protest, you shake your head. It does not matter. The anchor is set. Your future thoughts now move around that original number, not around a neutral 0. You feel strong for pushing it down, but you are still locked inside their frame. It is like arguing about how far you should walk into a maze while forgetting you did not design the maze. Your face and body betray how deep the anchor went. The moment they drop the first number, they do not only watch what you say, they study the micro-expression that flashes before you speak. Does your eyebrow jump up in a brief flash of surprise? Do your lips press together, then relax in what looks like reluctant acceptance? Is there a quick sigh of relief if the number is lower than what you secretly feared? Do you start justifying it for them without being asked? Saying things like, well, that does seem fair considering. Those tiny cues tell them your internal range. They know how hard they can push, how low you might counter, and where you will probably land. Your independent next move is now a predictable correction around their chosen center. Salespeople, negotiators, even controlling friends use this every day. A friend might say, I know this is a huge ask, but can you help me with this all weekend? They never expected the whole weekend. They just want you to say, I cannot do that, but I can give you one afternoon. You walk away thinking you created a fair boundary. In reality, you agreed to more than you would have if they had simply asked, can you give me Saturday afternoon? The same happens with time estimates at work. A boss sets a harsh deadline, then kindly moves it a bit when you react. You feel grateful, but you are now committed to a pace you did not choose. Anchoring is not only about money, it is about any first definition that shapes your later feeling of what is normal. Here is the hardest part to admit. You often anchor yourself. You wake up and tell yourself a story like, "I have always been bad at negotiations," or "I am lucky to even be here." Those thoughts become internal anchors. When someone then gives a slightly unfair deal, it feels not only acceptable, but generous. You compare it to your own low expectations. The manipulator does not even have to work that hard. They just confirm what you already secretly believe. Your baseline was rigged before you arrived. This is how people stay stuck in underpaid jobs, draining relationships, or unfair dynamics for years. The first story they accepted about their worth still rules their decisions. The countermove starts with slowing down the moment you feel pressure to respond. When someone throws a number, a deadline, or a big claim at you, pause. Not for effect, but for yourself. In that pause, imagine wiping the slate clean. Ask yourself, if I had not heard that number, if I had not been told that story, what would I think is fair? What is my actual minimum and maximum here? What do people outside this situation usually accept? Use outside benchmarks, not the one they just gave you. This can be research, past experiences, or even a quick mental check like, would I advise a friend to accept this? You can also set your own anchor first. Before a negotiation, decide what you truly want, what you can live with, and what is a hard no. Fix those in your mind before you enter the room. When the other side throws their anchor, compare it to yours, not the other way around. If theirs is far off, do not dance around it. Say plainly, "That is outside my range," without giving away your true line immediately. Refuse to treat their first move as the center of the universe. You are allowed to bring your own center. Over time, you will notice something strange. When you stop taking the first frame as reality, manipulators get frustrated. They may accuse you of being difficult or unreasonable because their favorite trick is not landing. That is fine. Their irritation is proof that the anchor insertion failed. Your decisions become less reactive and more grounded. Their map of you becomes blurry because they can no longer count on you to orbit the first thing they throw at you. You have moved your baseline back into your own hands, and for people who live off your predictability, that is deeply inconvenient. Social proof sensitivity. Your fear of standing alone. Most people would rather be wrong with a group than right by themselves. That is not a personal insult. It is a basic social reflex. Human beings are wired to survive in groups, so the brain treats isolation like danger. This makes you easy to steer. The person who controls what you think everyone is doing, thinking, or accepting can quietly control you without ever touching your logic. Psychologists showed this clearly decades ago. In Solomon Asch's famous line experiments, people sat in a group and were asked a simple question: which line matches the length of the target line? The answer was obvious, but when the whole group gave a wrong answer on purpose, many subjects went along with the wrong answer, even while clearly seeing the truth. They did not want to stand out. Truth lost to belonging. Muzafer Sharif saw something similar in his autokinetic effect experiments. People stared at a point of light in a dark room. It actually did not move, but it looked like it did. When people judged the movement alone, they picked their own personal estimate. When they judged in groups and heard others' answers, their estimates slowly moved toward a shared group norm. Once that norm set in, even when people later judged alone again, they stayed close to that group value. Social proof, the sense of "this is what we do here," had sunk into their private thinking. Robert Cialdini later described this as a principle. When uncertain, people look to others to decide what is correct. Manipulators treat that principle like a lever. They are not interested in the truth. They are interested in what looks like the majority. To control that lever, they first need to know how sensitive you are to it. So they test you with small phrases that sound casual, but are actually probes. They might say, "Everyone here usually signs by the end of the meeting," and watch your reaction. Does your face show relief, as if pressure just dropped because now you know what is normal? Or do you stiffen slightly, as if you do not like being told what everyone does? They might mention that no one else had a problem with this, or that all the other clients agreed right away. If your eyes brighten, your shoulders relax, or you say things like, "Oh, okay, I just wanted to be sure I was not the only one." They learned something. Your fear is not mainly about making a bad choice. Your fear is about being the odd one out. Your words give away even more. Listen to how often you say things like "people will think," "everyone says," "it is what people do," or "I do not want to look weird." When you keep checking social weather before making choices, manipulators notice. They see that your real decision filter is not "is this right?" but "will this make me stand out?" That makes your behavior easy to predict. If they can create the illusion of a crowd moving in a certain direction, they can be almost sure you will feel pressure to move with it. It does not matter if the crowd is real. Often it is not. Group dynamics make this worse through something called pluralistic ignorance. That happens when everyone in a group privately doubts or dislikes something, but no one shows it, because each person thinks they are the only one who feels that way. Since everyone stays silent, it looks like full agreement. A manipulator can feed this by acting as if the silence means consent. In a meeting, a boss might present a harsh policy and then say, "Seems like we are all on the same page," after a few seconds of awkward quiet. People who are scared to be first to object stay quiet a bit longer, and suddenly the fake consensus becomes real. You can predict what happens next. Most people comply, not because they believe in it, but because they do not want to break the surface of apparent unity. Online, this effect is everywhere. Fake reviews, bot followers, and staged comments exist for a reason. If you are highly sensitive to social proof, a product with thousands of positive reviews feels safer. A person with millions of followers feels more credible. A video with a flood of agreeing comments feels more correct. You rarely stop to ask how many of those signals are real. You see a number and think, "So many people like this, it must be good." Manipulators who understand this do not need to improve the thing they are selling. They only need to inflate the signs that everyone else already agrees. Your need not to feel like the lone skeptic does the rest. Inside families, friend groups, workplaces, and communities, this is a quiet trap. If you are known as someone who hates conflict or does not like to be the odd one out, you will often be given a fake sense of unity to keep you in line. A toxic friend might say, "All of us think you are overreacting," when in reality they just speak for themselves. A partner might say, "Everyone fights like this, you are just sensitive," so that your instincts feel abnormal. A boss might insist that no one else has complained, even when others have, just to make you doubt your right to speak up. If you are scared of standing alone, those phrases cut deep. They tell the manipulator you will probably back down, apologize, or stay silent, just to avoid the shame of feeling like the only dissenter. Breaking this control starts with a simple mental exercise. Remove the audience. When you face a choice that feels loaded with social judgment, pause and ask, "If I lived in a world where no one could see, know, or judge this decision, what would I choose?" Imagine that there are no friends to impress, no followers to gain, no crowd to shame you, no group to leave you out, just you and the decision. Let the answer rise without editing it to sound normal. That answer is your private control signal. It does not mean you must always act on it exactly, but it gives you a clear starting point, what you actually believe, separate from the social pressure. Then, when someone throws social proof at you, compare it to that private answer. If a salesperson says, "Most people just go with the premium plan," notice your internal reaction. Does it pull you away from your own judgment? If your private answer was, "The basic plan is enough for me," and you suddenly feel foolish for wanting it, remind yourself, they are using your brain's fear of standing out, not giving you real information. You can even respond out loud in a calm way. "I hear that others chose that, but I am deciding based on my needs." This simple sentence does two things. It tells them their trick failed, and it tells your own nervous system that safety does not only come from matching the crowd. You can also build a different kind of social proof for yourself. Find at least a few people in your life who respect independent thought, not just agreement. When you see someone else calmly hold a different view without falling apart, your brain learns a new lesson. Standing alone is not death. It is uncomfortable but survivable. This makes you less desperate to cling to the nearest group and harder to steer with fake majorities. Over time, your pattern changes. Instead of instantly bending when told everyone thinks this, you pause and think, Maybe, but what do I think? Manipulators feel that pause. It makes their usual shortcuts fail. Your fear of standing alone stops being a lever for others to pull and becomes something you can notice, manage, and slowly shrink. 4. Emotional framing capture. They name your feelings before you do. The fastest way to control someone is not to argue with their thoughts, but to capture their feelings before they have named them. Most people move through tense moments with a vague fog inside, a mix of worry, anger, guilt, or doubt that has not been clearly defined. In that fog, whoever names the emotion first often wins. Psychologists like James Gross have shown that putting feelings into words changes them. When you label an emotion, you are not just describing it, you are shaping it. The label becomes a frame that tells your brain, this is what is happening, this is who you are right now. Once that frame is set, your behavior tends to follow it. Manipulators use this like a net. They do not wait for you to find your own words. They rush in with theirs. They study your face, your shoulders, your breathing, your pauses. Then they say things like, "You are clearly confused about this," or "You are overreacting because you are stressed," or "You feel guilty, do you not?" These sentences are not neutral observations. They are suggestions. The manipulator then watches closely. Do you nod slightly? Do your shoulders sag as if in surrender? Do you give a weak laugh and say something like, "Yeah, I guess I am just tired," even if that is not fully true? Do you become more careful with your words as if trying to fit into the role they just handed you? Those tiny signs tell them you have accepted their label. Once you accept it, the frame wraps around your thoughts. If they say you are unsure and you agree, your brain starts to scan for evidence that you are indeed unsure. Normal caution feels like confusion. Any hesitation feels like proof that you cannot trust yourself. That makes you more likely to lean on their judgment. If they say you are emotional and you accept it, any strong feeling you have after that looks suspicious, even to you. When you raise a valid concern, they can dismiss it as just your emotions talking, and you may doubt yourself instead of pushing back. The label shifts your identity in that moment from person with a point to person who is not thinking straight. Your future reactions line up with that identity. In high-pressure settings, this is pushed hard. Interrogators sometimes use a mix of accusation and emotional labeling to corner a suspect. They might say, "You are feeling guilty. I can see it," even when the person mainly feels scared and confused. If the person accepts guilty as their feeling, they may start acting like someone who has done something wrong, becoming more submissive, more eager to please, more likely to say what the interrogator wants just to shift the feeling. Controlling partners do something similar. During arguments, they might say, "You are paranoid," or "You are so insecure," when you ask a normal question about their behavior. If you accept that frame, your future questions come loaded with shame. You start thinking, "Maybe I am paranoid," instead of, "Maybe they are hiding something." Bosses and leaders can also weaponize emotional framing. Say you bring up an unfair workload. Instead of facing the issue, a boss might lean back and say, "You are clearly overwhelmed. Maybe you are not managing stress well." Now the problem is not the work, the problem is you. If you accept that, your energy shifts from challenging the system to fixing yourself. You start reading books on stress management instead of asking why the team is understaffed. The boss did not solve the issue. They rewrote your feelings in a way that protects their power. The next time you feel tired or upset, you are more likely to blame your weakness than the real conditions around you. That makes your future behavior easy to predict. You will continue to carry too much and ask for too little. Gaslighting often depends on this trick. The gaslighter keeps feeding you emotional labels that do not match your reality. You say, "That comment really hurt me," and they reply, "You are too sensitive." You say, "I saw you lie," and they reply, "You are confused, you always mix things up." Over time, you may stop trusting your own emotional radar. Instead of thinking, "I feel hurt because that was wrong," you think, "I feel hurt because I am broken." That shift is deadly for self-respect. It also makes you easier to control. A person who distrusts their own feelings will lean on outside frames, and the gaslighter is always ready with another. The research on emotion regulation shows that how you label a feeling literally changes its intensity. Naming anger as frustration can calm it a bit. Naming fear as excitement can change how the body responds. Manipulators know this too. Sometimes they will tone down your feelings on purpose. They might say, "You are just a bit nervous, that is all," when you feel deep dread, so you push yourself into situations you are not okay with. Other times they will exaggerate your feelings to suit them. They might say, "You are clearly furious," when you are only mildly annoyed, so they can act like you are unreasonable and justify their own overreaction. In both cases, they are not trying to understand you, they are trying to steer you. The way out of this trap starts before the other person opens their mouth. Before going into a high-stakes talk, take a moment alone and name your own emotional state with brutal honesty. Do not dress it up to sound polite or strong. If you feel scared, say to yourself, "I feel scared." If you feel angry, say, "I feel angry." If you feel sad, ashamed, hopeful, or numb, put that into simple words in your own mind. You can even say it out loud when alone. This does not make you weak, it does the opposite. It means you are claiming the right to define your own inner world before anyone else does. Then, during the interaction, treat their emotional labels as data to compare, not as truth to swallow. When someone says, "You are overreacting," run a quick inner check. What did I call this feeling before I came in? If you had named it hurt or disrespected, and now they are calling it overreacting, notice the gap. That gap is important. It tells you they are trying to pull you into their frame. You do not have to fight or shout. A calm, simple line is enough. "That is not how I feel. I feel hurt." Or, "No, I am not confused. I am concerned about this specific thing." When you correct the label out loud, you send a signal to your own brain and to them. You are the one who gets to define your emotions. This may feel strange at first, especially if you are used to others telling you how you feel. You might worry about seeming stubborn or dramatic, but check the results. When you hold your own label, you think more clearly. Your choices come from a stable sense of "this is my state," rather than a shaky picture handed to you by someone who benefits from your doubt. Manipulators hate this. Their usual lines lose power. Calling you crazy or too sensitive does not land the same way, because you have already done your own emotional scan and know what is real for you. Over time, this practice changes your pattern. Instead of floating into tense moments with a foggy mind that others can name for you, you arrive with a clear internal description. "I am nervous but determined." That clarity makes you harder to move with casual labels. Their attempts to frame your feelings become obvious moves, not invisible truths. Their map of you stops being a simple drawing of weak spots and starts running into strong walls where your self-knowledge stands. You have taken back the first and most basic right in any interaction, the right to say, "This is what I feel," and to let your next moves rise from that, not from someone else's story about you. 5. Pacing and leading. Synchronizing your nervous system to steer your choices. Some people do not convince you with arguments. They convince you with rhythm. You walk away from a talk with them saying, "I do not know why I agreed, it just felt right in the moment." That feeling is not random. It often comes from a tactic called pacing and leading. It comes from hypnosis and what later became known in some circles as NLP. But the roots are simple. First, match the other person so their nervous system relaxes, then shift so they unconsciously follow you. When this is used with care, it can build trust. When it is used with hidden motives, it turns your body into a remote control. Psychologists Chartrand and Barg described something called the chameleon effect. People naturally and unconsciously mimic each other's posture, gestures, and tone in social situations. When someone crosses their legs, you may do it too without noticing. When a friend laughs in a certain way, you might copy it slightly. This automatic mirroring builds rapport. You tend to like people who move and sound a bit like you. You also tend to feel more comfortable saying yes to them. Manipulators do not leave this to chance. They do it on purpose. Pacing is the first step. The manipulator watches you closely. If you talk fast, they speed up. If you talk slowly, they slow down. If you lean back, they lean back. If you sit on the edge of your seat, they move forward too. They match your breathing rate, your level of eye contact, even your choice of words. If you are using casual slang, they do too. If you sound formal, they shift into more formal language. This does not look like mocking. It is subtle. just enough similarity for your nervous system to think, same tribe, same mood, safe. As this continues, your guard drops because it feels like you are on the same wavelength. Then comes the test. Once they feel you are synced, they start to lead. That means they make a small change in their behavior and see if you follow without thinking. For example, they might slow their speech a little and check if you naturally slow down too. They might lean in a bit and see if you move forward to match. They might lower their voice and notice if you also start speaking more quietly. If you do, that tells them your body is now tracking theirs. Your nervous system has taken their state as the reference point. From that moment, they can start steering you not only in posture and tone, but in decisions. In this state of hidden follow, suggestions land differently. If they speed up their speech just after making a request, your mind may have less time to question it because you are still busy matching their pace. If they add warmth and a soft tone while asking for a favor, your body, already synced with that warmth, feels odd saying no. You might hear yourself agreeing to things that, in a cold, unsynced state, you would never accept. It feels strangely automatic, as if saying yes was the natural next step. That sensation is a sign that pacing and leading did its job. This is not only used in sales or formal persuasion. It shows up in everyday power games. A toxic partner might mirror your anger at first, matching your raised voice and fast breathing, then slowly calm themselves down and lower their tone. If you are strongly synced with them, you may find yourself calming down too, even if your concerns are not resolved. Once you are calmer, they might shift the story. See, now you are thinking straight. You know this is not a big deal. Your body has followed their calm, so your mind may feel pressure to match that story, even if the original issue still matters. The tactic did not solve the problem. It just changed your state to make you easier to persuade. In group settings, skilled leaders use pacing and leading on entire rooms. They begin by matching the group's energy. If people are restless and loud, they start high energy and loud as well. After a while, they slowly bring the energy down, pausing more, lowering their voice. The group already in sync comes down with them. Strategies, offers, and requests shared during these calmer moments feel more reasonable and grounded, not because they are better ideas, but because everyone has been guided into a more open state. If such a leader is ethical, this can help focus a crowd. If the leader is manipulative, it can turn a room of doubters into a room of quiet followers. Your own behavior can make you a prime target for this. If you are very quick to mirror others, always matching their jokes, their slang, their sitting style, and their emotional tone, manipulators notice. They see that your nervous system is eager to sync. That means, once they get you into rhythm, they can stretch that rhythm in whatever direction benefits them. They know that if they slowly move toward excitement, you will get excited. If they slowly move toward fear, you will tense up. In both states, high excitement and high fear, people say yes more easily just to stay with the group energy. Your pattern becomes predictable. You will go where the rhythm goes. The counter move is about breaking that invisible rhythm on purpose. First, start noticing when you are mirroring someone. Catch yourself when you copy their posture, lean in as they lean in, or match their tone. Do not beat yourself up. This is normal. Just become aware. Then, in the middle of a talk that feels intense or fast-paced, introduce a small, deliberate break. For example, suddenly sit back if you have been leaning forward, or straighten up if you have been slouching. Pause before answering instead of matching their quick replies. Let a few seconds of silence sit, even if it feels uncomfortable. Those small breaks do something crucial. They remind your nervous system that it does not have to stay locked onto theirs. A pause gives your thinking brain time to catch up and ask, do I actually agree with this? Changing posture shifts your internal state enough to weaken the automatic follow. You move from in their rhythm to in your own space. From that space, saying no or asking for time feels more possible. You are no longer being pulled along by their tempo. You can also practice leading yourself. Before entering a conversation with someone you suspect of manipulating you, set your own physical baseline. Decide how you want to sit, how slowly you want to speak, how much eye contact feels comfortable. During the talk, whenever you feel yourself being dragged into their speed or posture, gently return to your chosen baseline. If they lean in, you do not have to lean in as far. If they speed up, you can reply at your normal rate. Often they will try to resync with you, but now they are pacing you instead of the other way around. This flips the power. You are the stable point, not the follower. Over time, as you keep breaking rhythm and returning to yourself, something changes in how manipulators experience you. You no longer fall into step as easily. Their tests, like sudden tone shifts or quick posture changes, do not get automatic compliance. To them, you start to feel harder to read or less cooperative, because their usual nervous system tricks are not working. That is not a bad sign. It means their map of your body and mind is losing accuracy. You are no longer a simple instrument they can play by tapping into your natural urge to sync. You still connect with people, you still build rapport, but you do it by choice, not by reflex. And when someone tries to steer that connection toward their agenda, you have the skill to slow down, step out of the rhythm, and decide for yourself what comes next. 6. Contrast distortion. How extremes rewire your sense of fairness. Your sense of what is fair is not as solid as you think. It bends. It bends every time something extreme hits you first. The brain does not judge offers, situations, or people in a vacuum. It judges them compared to what came just before. Psychologists call this the contrast effect. Tversky and Kahneman showed in many ways that our minds are pulled around by context. Robert Cialdini described a simple version in Persuasion. If you first show someone a very expensive option, the second, still costly option feels lighter and more acceptable. Nothing real changed about that second option, only the contrast did. Manipulators use this on purpose. Instead of asking for what they actually want, they often start with something worse. A salesperson does not begin with the basic package they hope you will buy. They start with a premium offer at a painful price. Your face tightens, your body tenses, maybe you even laugh and say it is too much. They expect that. Then they kindly show you the cheaper option. Compared to the first, it feels like a relief, even if it is still more than you planned to spend. You walk out thinking you got a good deal, when in reality you were steered by a trick of contrast. This is not only about money. It can be about time, effort, treatment, almost anything. A boss may first suggest a brutal deadline or a huge extra task. When you react, they suddenly reduce it a bit and frame it as a compromise. You feel grateful and agree, even though the final demand is still unfair. A friend might first ask a huge favor that you would never accept, then quickly back down to the real favor they wanted all along. Because the second request looks smaller next to the first, you say yes more easily. If they had started with the real request, you might have said no. Your reactions to the extreme tell manipulators exactly where your line sits. When they drop an outrageous offer, they watch your eyes and mouth. Are you shocked, angry, or only mildly annoyed? Do you protest strongly or hesitate, as if part of you is tempted? After the initial spike, they watch for the moment your body shows relief. Maybe your shoulders relax when they suggest a middle ground. Maybe your tone softens and you start saying things like, "That seems more reasonable." That sigh of relief is like a flag planted on your internal map. It marks your fairness threshold. From then on, they know roughly how far they can push you and still get your cooperation. This pattern becomes especially dangerous when mixed with emotional arousal. Imagine a partner who starts a fight with a huge, scary threat like, "Maybe we should just break up." Your system goes into panic. You imagine losing them. You feel sick, desperate. After a while, they suddenly pull back and say, "Fine, we do not have to break up, but you need to stop doing this and that." Compared to the terror of losing the relationship, their demands feel like a relief. You might accept rules or limits you would never have agreed to if they had been suggested calmly on a normal day. The extreme threat set a new scale inside you. Not breaking up feels like a win, even if the new terms are slowly choking you. Abusive relationships often follow a contrast pattern, intense cruelty followed by sudden kindness. After days of insults, coldness, or rage, the abuser flips into charm, affection, or gifts. That shift feels huge. The kind moments glow brighter because they sit next to deep pain. Victims can start to think, "They are not that bad, look how sweet they can be," because they are comparing the sweet moments to the abuse, not to how a healthy relationship should feel. The abuser does not need to be good. They only need to be less bad than their worst self. Contrast hides the real baseline. You also see this in negotiation games. Start with a scary opening. If we cannot agree, this could go to court, cost both of us a lot, and drag on for months. The other side feels fear and stress. Then you offer a reasonable settlement that is tilted in your favor. The other person, desperate to avoid the worst case, suddenly sees your unfair deal as attractive. The mental shift is not about logic. It is about moving from panic to relief. Once someone feels that drop in tension, they are likely to accept almost anything that seems like a way out. So how do you stop your sense of fairness from being so easy to bend? The key move is to mentally reset to zero. When faced with an extreme option followed by a better one, ask yourself a clear question. If I had never seen that first option, how would I judge the second one? Strip away the comparison in your mind. Imagine that the second offer was the only offer ever presented. Would it feel fair, kind, smart, or healthy on its own terms? Would you advise a friend to accept it if there was no scary alternative hanging in the air? This takes practice, because your body clings to the feeling of relief. That relief is real, but it is about escaping the first extreme, not about the true value of the second choice. When you notice that sense of thank goodness, this is so much better, treat it as a warning sign. It means your system is comparing, not judging cleanly. In that moment, slow down. Say, I need time to think about this, even if the other person tries to rush you. Contrast works best when you react quickly, riding the emotional swing from shock to relief. Time cools that swing and lets your thinking brain back into the room. You can also prepare by setting your own idea of fair before you enter certain situations. For example, before going to buy something big, decide your own price range based on research, not on what the salesperson might show you first. Before a work discussion, think about what workload, deadline, or compromise would truly be acceptable. When someone then hits you with extremes, you already have an internal standard to measure against. Instead of thinking, well, this is better than what they first said, you can think, does this match what I decided is fair for me? That simple shift keeps the anchor of fairness inside you. Notice too when someone keeps using extremes over and over. If a person always starts absurdly high, always threatens something dramatic, or always swings between harsh and kind, they are not just being emotional or clumsy. They are teaching your system to live in a world where less bad feels like good. That is not normal. That is training. Once you see that pattern, you can make a deeper decision, not just to resist each contrast trick, but to question why you are dealing with someone who needs tricks at all. As you get better at resetting to zero, manipulators feel the difference. Their wild first offers do not pull your reactions as much. Their fake compromises do not impress you. Their sudden kindness after cruelty does not erase your memory of how they treated you before. Your idea of fair starts to stand on its own, instead of floating up and down based on whatever extreme they throw at you. Their map of you becomes less useful because they cannot count on your sense of relief to guide your choices. You are no longer judging life by better than terrible, but by your own clear standards of what is actually acceptable. Zeigarnik. Tension loading. Weaponizing your need for closure. Your mind hates open loops. An unfinished task, an unresolved argument, a half-told story sits in your head and keeps pulling attention back. Zeigarnik, a psychologist in the early 20th century, noticed that waiters in a cafe remembered unpaid orders much better than paid ones. Once the bill was settled, the details faded. As long as the task was incomplete, it stayed sharp in their memory. This became known as the Zeigarnik effect. The brain holds on to unfinished business more tightly than finished business because it wants closure. That pull toward closure helps you remember to finish tasks, but it also makes you vulnerable. A manipulator who understands this does not need to overpower you. They just need to keep you slightly unsettled. The tactic is simple. They create or highlight unresolved tension, then wait for you to move toward anything that promises to end it. They might drop a line like, "We need to talk later," and then refuse to explain. They might say, "I found something strange about what you did, but we will discuss it some other time." Suddenly a loop opens in your mind. What did they find? How bad is it? Are you in trouble? You replay past actions. Imagine worst-case outcomes. Rehearse conversations that have not even happened. On the surface, nothing is happening. In your head, a whole storm is active. That silent storm is power in the manipulator's hands. Unfinished stories work the same way. Someone says, "I heard something interesting about you yesterday, but I cannot tell you now," and then changes the subject. You laugh it off, but part of your mind locks onto that line. Hours later, you are still wondering. The same happens with incomplete promises. "I have something that could really help you, but let us talk about it next week." The promise hangs there, half-formed. You start planning around it, hoping for it, worrying about losing it. As long as it stays incomplete, it holds power over your thoughts. Manipulators watch how you react to these open loops. Do you immediately ask follow-up questions? "What do you mean? Can you tell me now? Is everything okay?" Do you send extra messages later, checking in? "Are you mad at me? Are we okay? Have you decided yet?" Do you lie awake thinking about the loose end, going over it again and again? These are visible signs that the tension has hooked you. To someone studying you, this means your next moves can be steered by whatever offers to close the loop, even if that closure is unfair or harmful. Cults and high-control groups often use this on a large scale. They hint at secret knowledge or deeper levels that only a few can access. They say things like, "You are almost ready for the next revelation," but never fully explain what that is. Members stay in a constant state of almost finished, not quite there. They keep giving time, money, and loyalty, hoping to finally reach that promised resolution. The loop is never truly closed because the group survives on that ongoing tension. Your life shrinks around the single question: what do I have to do to finally get there? Toxic partners use Zeigarnik tension in more personal ways. They may start a serious conversation, say something hurtful or alarming, then suddenly withdraw with, "Forget it, I do not want to talk about this now." The fight is not solved, the issue is not addressed, but the discussion is cut off. You are left stewing, trying to guess what they meant, trying to fix something without clear information. Later, when they decide they are ready to talk, you are often so desperate for peace that you apologize for things that were not your fault, or accept blame just to make the discomfort stop. They did not win the argument. They controlled the timing of closure. Some marketing and media tactics also rely on this effect. Cliffhangers at the end of episodes, emails that say you will not believe what happened next, but only reveal part of the story, countdown timers for ending soon, offers that reset again and again. All of these keep you in a state of not done yet. You click, check, and come back, trying to finish the loop the system keeps reopening. Your time and focus get eaten not because the content is amazing, but because your brain cannot stand being left hanging. The real danger of living with constant open loops is how it narrows your decision tree. When tension is always buzzing, your main goal shifts from "what is right for me" to "what will finally calm me down." You may say yes to demands you dislike, give information you should keep private, send messages you regret, or stay in situations that harm you, just because walking away while the loop is open feels unbearable. The manipulator does not need to guess much. They know that as long as they keep something unresolved, you will keep circling back, trying to close it. So what is the counter move? You have to train a skill that almost no one teaches: the ability to tolerate unresolved tension on purpose. Start with a simple mental step. When someone drops an open loop on you, quietly label it in your mind. This is an unfinished thing they are using, and it is supposed to bother me. Just naming the tactic reduces some of its power. You stop treating the discomfort as a sign that you must act right now, and start seeing it as a signal that someone is pulling a lever. Next, consciously mark some loops as allowed to remain open. That might sound strange, because every part of you wants to tie things up. But practice it in small ways first. If you send a message and someone does not respond right away, notice the urge to send another, and choose to wait. Tell yourself, this can stay unresolved for now. When you start an online series that uses constant cliffhangers, notice the urge to autoplay the next episode, and sometimes stop anyway. Let the story hang. You are teaching your brain that not every open loop deserves your energy. In more serious situations, like when a partner or boss says, "We will talk later," and you can feel anxiety rising, pause and ask yourself a grounding question. What am I afraid will happen if this stays unresolved for a while? Often, the deepest fear is not about the specific issue, but about what it means about you. You might fear being seen as bad, rejected, punished, or abandoned. Recognizing that fear gives you a choice. Instead of racing to fix the other person's mood or get answers from them, you can work on calming yourself in other ways. Breathing, going for a walk, talking to a trusted friend, or writing out your worries. A strong move is to set your own terms for closure. If someone keeps saying, "We will deal with this later," but never does, you are allowed to respond with your own limit. "I am not willing to carry this as an open issue forever. If we cannot talk about it by this time, I will make my own decision about what to do." This shifts you from being a person chasing their timing to being a person with your own clock. They may not like it, because it takes the power of delay out of their hands. But your nervous system will feel stronger, because you are not stuck waiting for them to decide when you get peace. You can also refuse to pay high prices just to close a loop. Before you give in to an unfair demand because you just want this over with, ask yourself bluntly, what am I trading away for this feeling of relief? If the cost is your self-respect, your money, your safety, or your long-term goals, the price is too high. In that moment, tell yourself, I choose temporary discomfort over permanent loss. It will still feel bad, but now the tension has meaning. You are enduring it for a reason, not just being tossed around by it. As you practice these steps, something important changes in your pattern. You stop jumping every time a new unresolved hint, threat, or promise appears. Manipulators will notice. Their half-finished comments no longer pull you into frantic questioning. Their "we will see" lines no longer keep you frozen in place. You might calmly reply, "When you are ready to talk clearly, let me know. Until then, I am moving ahead with my life." That kind of response shows that you feel the tension, but you are not owned by it. Over time, your mind learns that not every open loop has to be closed by the person who started it. Some can be closed by your own decision to step away. Some can be left hanging without destroying you. The constant hum of unfinished business grows quieter. For manipulators, this is a serious problem. Their map of you relied on a simple rule: if I keep them waiting, they will do more and more to satisfy me. When that rule breaks, their ability to steer you shrinks. You become someone who can feel the urge for closure, recognize when it is being used against you, and choose, calmly and on purpose, when to close the loop and when to let it stay open. Endowment identity bias, when mind becomes your psychological prison. There is a big difference between owning something and being owned by it. Research on the endowment effect by Kahneman, Netsch, and Thaler showed a simple truth. As soon as people own an item, they start valuing it more, even if nothing about the item has changed. Give someone a mug and they demand more money to give it up than they would have been willing to pay to get it in the first place. Just having it makes it feel special. That is already a bias, but in real life it goes much deeper. You do not just endow objects with extra value. You endow roles, relationships, beliefs, and projects. At some point, these things stop being things you have and start becoming things you are. When ownership fuses with identity, letting go feels like deleting yourself. Manipulators watch for that fusion. They do not need a brain scan. They listen to your language and watch your reactions. How fast do you use the word "my" with certain parts of your life? Do you say "the job I have right now" or "my career" with heavy pride and emotion? Do you say "this person I am seeing" or "my person, my partner" with a strong sense of possession? When someone questions your workplace, your group, your belief system, do you respond with curiosity or instant defense? A slight tense jaw, a sharp tone, phrases like, "You do not understand, this is who I am," tell them something crucial. That thing is plugged into your identity. Threatening it feels like threatening your existence. Once they see that, your future moves become easier to predict. If your whole self-image hangs on being a loyal employee, a boss knows you will work unpaid overtime, swallow unfair treatment, and defend the company even when it harms you. If your sense of worth is attached to being a good partner who never gives up, a toxic lover knows you will stay through cheating, lies, or disrespect because leaving would clash with who you believe you are. If your entire social image is built on being part of a certain group, party, belief, or community, the leaders know that you will ignore red flags, justify contradictions, and attack anyone who questions the group, because admitting a problem would tear a hole in your own identity. This is where the sunk cost fallacy joins in and tightens the trap. The sunk cost fallacy is the pull to keep investing in something just because you have already invested so much, even when it no longer makes sense. You stay in a failing project because you have spent months on it. You hold a bad investment because you have poured so much money into it already. You cling to a dying relationship because of all the years together. When sunk cost combines with identity, the rule becomes nearly iron. You will stay no matter what. You tell yourself, I have put too much into this to quit now, and if I walk away, what does that say about me? Manipulators do not need to argue with you. They just have to remind you of everything you have already given, and your own bias keeps you stuck. Endowment identity bias also shows up in beliefs and opinions. Once you publicly commit to a position, it becomes my belief. You defend it in debates, post about it online, maybe join communities around it. At that point, changing your mind is not just about updating an idea. It feels like betraying yourself and your group. Leaders, influencers, and propagandists know this. They push people to loudly claim labels, my movement, my side, my ideology. After that, any evidence against the belief feels like a personal attack. Your mind bends new information to protect the old identity. The manipulator does not need to constantly convince you. They just need you to keep saying mine out loud until you will do the convincing yourself. You can see how this plays out in workplaces. An employee is praised early on as a real company person, part of the family, someone who will go far here. At first, it feels flattering. Slowly, every extra task, every sacrifice, every late night is framed not as exploitation, but as loyalty to your company, your team, your mission. If the business later treats you unfairly, you feel torn. Speaking up or leaving does not just mean changing jobs. It means breaking up with a part of who you think you are. Many people solve that tension by defending the system that hurts them, saying things like, every job is like this, or I could not handle it, that is on me, instead of facing that their family is using them. In personal relationships, the same process can turn love into a cage. Calling someone my person is not wrong by itself. The problem comes when your whole identity wraps around that link. If you believe, without them, I am nothing, or I am the kind of person who never leaves, then any sign that the relationship is unhealthy clashes with your self-image. A manipulative partner will often test this early. They might say things like, you are not like those people who quit when things get hard, right? If you respond with strong agreement, they learn that your idea of yourself as loyal is more important to you than your comfort. Later, when they cross lines, they remind you of this identity. I thought you were not a quitter. I thought we were different. I thought you believed love means staying. Your own story about yourself becomes the knife they hold to your throat. The same trap appears in beliefs about strength and toughness. If you see yourself as the strong one who can handle anything, manipulators will pile more on you. You might even boast about it at first. I can take it. I do not need help. I am built for this. Pornography-is. They hear that and think, good, I can keep loading them, and they will call it pride. When you finally reach breaking point, instead of asking whether others abused your strength, you blame yourself for not being strong enough. That keeps you locked in place, redoubling efforts in a system that was never designed to be fair to you. So how do you break out of this identity prison without losing yourself? The key is to separate me from mine. Start by asking 2 questions about any role, object, belief, or relationship that feels deeply fused with you. First, if this vanished tomorrow, what core of me would still remain? Imagine losing the job, the partner, the group, the belief. It will sting. It may feel scary. But look underneath that fear. You would still have certain traits, values, abilities, and desires. Maybe you would still be kind, curious, determined, creative, honest. Write those parts down if you need to. Naming them helps your brain see that identity is larger than any single attachment. Second, did I truly choose this? Or was I nudged, pressured, or trained into owning it? Think back to how you ended up with that job, that belief, that relationship style. Did you examine many options and decide with clear eyes? Or did you fall into it because of family expectations, social pressure, flattery, or fear? If you notice a lot of nudging, the bond between me and mine becomes suspect. It might not be identity. It might be conditioning. From there, practice talking about your roles with a bit more distance. Instead of always saying my career, you might sometimes say the work I am doing right now. Instead of my forever relationship, you might say the relationship I am in at this point in my life. This does not mean you care less. It means you are reminding your own mind that change is possible and that you are larger than any label. When someone tries to guilt you with your past investments, you can answer from this wider self. For example, yes, I have put years into this, and that is exactly why I need to be honest about whether it is still right for me. You are no longer letting sunk cost and identity drive by default. You can also test your freedom by asking, if I saw a stranger in my exact situation, with the same job, relationship, belief, or project, what advice would I give them? Often you would tell that stranger to leave, rest, change paths, or rethink. If your answer for yourself is very different, that is a sign that mine is overruling right. In such moments, say to yourself, I am not the exception. I deserve the same advice I would give to someone I care about. Acting on that will feel like betrayal at first, because you are breaking a long bond between identity and attachment. But underneath the fear, there is often relief. You are finally allowed to be a person, not just a role. As you do this more, manipulators will sense the shift. When they try to prod your identity, saying things like, but you are not the kind of person who would leave, you might answer, I am the kind of person who tries to do what is true, even when it means changing. That kind of statement is powerful. It updates your identity around flexibility, honesty, and self-respect instead of around blind loyalty or endless sacrifice. Their usual hooks, like reminding you of all you have given or all the labels you have worn, do not land the same way. In the end, the goal is not to stop caring, owning, or belonging. The goal is to stop confusing those things with your core self. Jobs can end, relationships can change, beliefs can grow, projects can fail, groups can disappoint. You remain. When you know that deeply, endowment identity bias loses much of its force. Your mind no longer owns you. Manipulators lose one of their strongest maps because they can no longer assume that threatening or praising a single role will control your choices. You become someone who can walk away from what no longer fits, not because you did not care, but because you finally realize that your identity is bigger than any box someone else benefits from keeping you in.